Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
Hey, everybody. Keaton Weiss and Russell Dobular here with Do Dissidents filling in for Jimmy. Jimmy will be back on Friday, not in studio, but for a live Rumble Time show with special guest Tucker Carlson. Speak of Tucker Carlson, he is the subject of this next segment here. Newsweek says Tucker Carlson's response to New York Times reporter, "I told you to fuck off." Tucker Carlson has shared the response he purportedly sent to New York Times reporter who asked him to comment on a story that alleged some of Carlson's social content contained election misinformation. Carlson shared screenshots of what appeared to be text messages between him and the reporter on his X account on Monday. The sender, who was saved in Carlson's phone as Nico, identified themselves as Nico Grant, a technology correspondent for the New York Times. So here is the text exchange. "Good day, Mr. Carlson. I hope you're well. I'm Nico Grant, a reporter at the New York Times. I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment." That's how they say. "I want to give you an opportunity." That's how you know you are like about to be the subject of a hit piece. Hey, how are you? I want to give you the opportunity to respond to a hit piece I'm getting ready to write about you. I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment for an upcoming article that takes a look at how political commentators have discussed the upcoming election on YouTube. We rely on an analysis conducted by researchers at Media Matters for America. Could you kindly provide us...
It's an unimpeachable source.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Could you kindly provide us with a comment or decline to comment by the end of day tomorrow, Tuesday, October 29th? Thanks so much for your time. Here are points we plan to include. Media Matters identified 286 YouTube videos between May and August that contained election misinformation, including narratives that have been debunked or are not supported with credible evidence. Researchers identified videos posted by you in those 4 months that contain election misinformation. We feature a clip of you saying, "All the sadness we've seen after the clearly stolen election. All these bad things happen, but people I know love each other more." That is horrible, horrible. How could he? I also have a few questions. Are you a member of the YouTube Partner Program, which for those of you who don't know, that is the monetization program? In other words, do you earn any money on YouTube? If so, how frequently does YouTube...
go after it.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. If so, how frequently does YouTube demonetize your videos? Has YouTube sent you messages, emails, or notices in the last year that your content contains misinformation? Thanks for your time. Now, I mean, how big an idiot would you have to be to actually respond kindly to this guy? Like, they're asking you questions like that. And look, when they talk about YouTube and YouTube monetization, look, I'm sure I don't know what Tucker's finances are. I assume he doesn't need the YouTube monetization, but it is important when you have an organization that is centered around YouTube, as many commentators do, not to run afoul of these guidelines, because a lot of these guidelines are enforced by robots. It's AI. You don't necessarily get a fair appeals process. So when someone starts asking you that kind of stuff about YouTube, that can be serious. That can be very, very dangerous for whatever operation you're running.
This is how capricious it is. We ran the same clip through my old theater company account, which is what we usually use to check to see if we're going to trigger anything before we drop a clip, like a copyright or something. And Keaton ran it through his personal. It's still in my files on that channel. It has never been flagged for anything. He put it in his, got flagged right away. That's how random it is. Same exact clip got treated completely differently on two different channels.
Exactly. So when they ask you questions like this, that could be a very dicey situation you get yourself into if you start talking too much, especially to a guy like the New York Times, who's clearly trying to write a hit piece. So Tucker responds, "So the New York Times is working with a left-wing hate group to silence critics of the Democratic Party? Please ask yourself why you're participating in it. This is why you got into journalism? It's shameful. I hope you're filled with guilt and self-loathing for sending me a text like this. Please quote me. I think that's a good quote. I hope you're filled with guilt and self-loathing for sending me a text like this. So he says, thank you for your prompt response. Would you like to address any of the points or questions above? He replies, would I like to participate in your attempt to censor me? No thanks, because that is what it is. But I do hope you'll quote what I wrote above and also note that I told you to fuck off, which I am now doing. Thanks. So that was nicely done. That was well said. Now, Ben Shapiro. Now, look, I'll speak for myself. I'm fairly certain I could speak for the show. Not a friend of Ben Shapiro. We include this just to prove that the New York Times reached out to him as well and to demonstrate that, in fact, Jews do not run the media. Because if we did, Ben Shapiro would have received no such text messages, okay? So I submit this to the jury. Exhibit A, evidence we do not. Despite some evidence to the contrary, I admit there has been some over this past year. We do not, in fact, own the media. If you're wondering what the legacy media would plan for this October surprise, wonder no longer. It's here. Today, I received the following text from a reporter at the New York Times. Okay, so he received the same thing. What precisely is the New York Times doing? It's perfectly obvious using research from Media Matters, a radical left-wing organization whose sole purpose is destroying conservative media, see below, in order to pressure YouTube to demonetize and penalize any and all conservatives 1 week from the election. That's the entire game here. Run an article in America's most trusted newspaper, quote unquote, that declares pretty much every major conservative a purveyor of misinformation on YouTube, thus strong-arming YouTube into taking action against conservatives. Hey, pains me to say it, but there's an old Jewish phrase, when you're right, you're right. That's what my grandfather used to say. Hey, when you're right, you're right. He's right. That is plainly and obviously what that is. And it's a dead giveaway. It's a dead giveaway by the New York Times to include the very specific questions about YouTube and monetization. Are you a part of the partner program? Do they demonetize your videos? How often do they demonetize your videos? That's a giveaway right there. That gives it away because you're getting into certain intricacies of the business that go beyond, hey, aren't you a liar about elections? Like, it could have just been that broad, but it wasn't that broad. They made it more specific. They're like, hey, by the way, do you get a paycheck from Google? If so, do they ever take away some of your money by demonetizing your videos? If not, why not? Aren't you a big liar? Like, that's clearly the bent of the piece. And it was so obvious that this blew up online before the piece could even come out because the guy leads with such obvious bear trap questions there that, I mean, you have to be an idiot to walk into it. And, you know, whatever you think of those guys, they're not idiots.
Well, sure. This is a point that Kim Iverson made when we interviewed her, that people think that the censorship is going to be better if Trump gets elected. And having nothing to do with Trump, you have to remember, Trump doesn't own these platforms. Right. Did censorship get better when he got elected in 2016? No. We saw censorship like we've never seen before. There's no reason to think the kinds of tech oligarchs who run these platforms are not going to double down on censorship. Now, the only counter argument I would make is the same fear they have to have of the regulatory state now. They're going to have that fear in another direction. Now, what that could wind up meaning is shows like ours that speak out a lot about genocide could wind up getting leaned on heavily, and it's going to be open season on trans laws. The floodgates, maybe it'll just wind up reflecting the biases of the new administration. I think either way, it's going to be a very difficult, dark time for speech. We can only hope the people at Rumble, so far, I will say they have been as good as their word from our dealings with them of making sure to support any and all speech without any kind of favor. And you can just go over there and say what you want. I've seen no sign of being suppressed or promoted. It's like it used to be on YouTube. Right. But yes, under a Kamala administration, Are they going to go after outfits like Rumble? Yes, I believe so. I believe outfits like that or X are in more danger if Kamala wins. This is a point Matt Taibbi made when I spoke to him at Restore the Republic, that they have a very well-developed plan for clamping down on speech online. It's something they believe in as a matter of principle. Whereas on the one hand, with some of the right-wing people, they're hypocritical. At least there's a hypocrisy. I can see that point. Like with them, there's not a hypocrisy. This is what they believe.
Oh, is what they say.
This is what they're working on.
They're so confident in it, they put that in the text message. Right.
They want to see, more and more you're seeing liberal outlets like The Atlantic just put out an article. Is the Constitution past date? Basically, like, do we need to get rid of the Constitution? Immediately after 2016, the libs turned to that kind of rhetoric. Is too much democracy a bad thing? Is freedom of speech really compatible with the new mediums of the internet that the founding fathers could not have conceived of? Don't we need to have new limits on speech? Certainly, that's the quarter that you're hearing that from. And we just covered on our show, Taibbi did an article about how the British are literally working with the Kamala campaign. And one of the things they're working on, suppressing speech.
Yep, absolutely.
Get this, I'm excited to tell you about this new app. It's called Kalshi. It's the first legal exchange where you can trade or bet on any event. Kalshi just got approval to list markets to trade on the outcome of the election. No kidding, making it the first legal place to trade on the election in 100 years. Kalshi has markets on who will win the presidential election, who will control the House and Senate, who will win swing states, and more. Right now, Trump and Kamala are trading at about 50-50, meaning if you place a bet on either, you will double your money if they end up winning. Really? Kalshi has already facilitated over $1 billion in trades. The election markets are now live to trade. You can sign up using my link, kalshi.com/door, and the first 500 traders who deposit $50 will get a free $20 credit. Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.